Alrighty. Test 1, 2, 6, 9, 420. Cool. How's it doing, the zero people, my friends? Gotta get the mic in a good spot. Here we go. Alright. Got my zero viewer chat right here. It's gonna be whole zero messages. Alright.
Hi, it's Saturday, April 11th, 2026. You're tuned into a special Saturday edition of Why America? I'm your lawyer friend, Legia Miller. This week, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, a progressive candidate running to represent Michigan in the U.S. Senate, was joined by leftist Twitch streamer Hassan Piker at a campaign rally at Michigan State University. Despite the fact that Trump was literally threatening to genocide an entire country while stripping away crucial social safety nets to fund his pointless war of aggression in the Middle East.
True.
Despite, all the horrors, the Democratic establishment...
That's all Trump's going to be for. Starting a war in Iran and invading Venezuela and whatnot so he can bury the Epstein files.
Was more incensed and up in arms about a leftist streamer stumping for a progressive candidate than they were about pretty much anything else this week. And hey, guess what? Prior to this week, I had never heard of Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Weird, it's almost like he's successfully campaigning for a seat in the Senate by aligning with people who will help publicize his race. Maybe instead of running around like their hair's on fire and twisting themselves up in knots trying to cancel Hassan Piker, the Democratic establishment could take some fucking notes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Today, we're breaking down what the fuck is going on with the Hassan Piker debate, and who he is, if you're like, Legia, I've never fucking heard of this guy, and why this discussion matters deeply for the future of this country. This headline from CNN helped inform my reporting on this issue, and believe me, we are going to break down this panel discussion because it's a doozy. Hassan Piker tests the limits of the Democratic Party's big tent. Using the Ground News browser extension, I can get helpful background information on this publication in one quick glance. To get the big picture, I can click on full coverage, which will show me coverage of the same story from publications across the political spectrum. My partner on today's video, Ground News, is an app and website that offers tools to help you critically analyze the news you read, providing context to understand the full picture. You can follow along at ground.news/Legia. For every major news headline and headlines you may have missed, Ground News provides you with information and context, like who owns the publication and how factual it is, to help you determine for yourself what is trustworthy and how to interpret the news. I feel empowered by Ground News by getting well-rounded insight into each headline instead of relying on a single outlet that might have underlying biases and motivations that I'm not aware of. Ground News also ensures that I never miss a headline because of my own information bubble with its blind spot feature, by highlighting stories that are covered on one side of the political spectrum and not the other. Ground News is transparent about its methodology, how it assesses each story and publication, including how it uses 3 independent monitoring organizations to assess the bias rating for each publication. I genuinely think the world would be a better place if everyone had this much context about the news they read, because depending on where you or your family members get the news, you're going to get very different takes on the same story. And listen, I'm not the only one who loves Ground News. The Nobel Peace Center even called it an excellent way to stay informed, avoid echo chambers, and expand your worldview. I'm always really impressed with Ground News and genuinely think they're a great resource. If you want to stay informed on U.S. politics and more, subscribe through this QR code or my link below at ground.news/Legia for 40% off this unlimited access Vantage plan. It comes up to $5 a month for unlimited access to all the features I've mentioned. Thanks, Ground News. Hassan Piker is a 34-year-old leftist content creator who mainly is known for his live streams on a live streaming website called Twitch. He got his start in the media world through his uncle Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, a left-leaning news organization. He live streams every day for 8 hours a day from his home in Los Angeles, mostly watching and commenting on the news to his over 3 million followers on Twitch, and then reposting clips of the live streams across other social media platforms. His views have been described as far left, socialist, Marxist. He tends to espouse espouse anti-imperialist, pro-worker,
Retarded.
pro-Palestinian ideology. So, of course, he's been labeled a major threat by the Democratic establishment. As recently laid out in a great opinion piece in The Guardian by Bhaskar Sankara, quote, Representative Brad Schneider branded Piker an unapologetic anti-Semite. Michigan's own Senator Alyssa Slotkin, a former Pentagon official, weighed in with her condemnation, as did Representative Haley Stevens, one of El Sayed's primary rivals. Another opponent, Mallory McMorrow, went so far as to liken Piker to Nick Fuentes, a white supremacist who has enthusiastically praised Adolf Hitler on camera. When Politico came calling, both Cory Booker and Ruben Gallego rushed to declare they would refuse an invitation to appear on Piker's stream. Again, at a time when we're fucking begging anyone in the Democratic establishment to do anything to stop the onslaught of horrific fucking atrocities being committed by our government, they are instead like, hey, we need to cancel this progressive Twitch streamer. This speaks volumes to two things. One, the extent to which our entire political and media establishment is bought out by Israel and AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which I'll get into, and two, the power that modern political commentators on social media have in America today. Maybe I'm biased, but I think I'm right. First, the primary objections that people have to Hassan Piker seem to stem from some controversial things he has said at various points throughout his career. Here's Dana Bash on CNN talking about it as though someone from AIPAC is holding a gun to her head just off screen.
Here's some of what he actually has said about the depravity of the October 7th terror attack, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Quote, it doesn't matter if effing rapes happened on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me. The Palestinian resistance is not perfect. Now, let that sink in. Hassan Piker is excusing sexual violence by Hamas terrorists. He also claims Hamas is, quote, 1,000 times better than Israel. Hamas is a designated terror organization, not just by the U.S., but by the EU, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, just to name a few. And here's what Piker said about the horrors of September 11th, 2001.
America deserved 9/11, dude. F it, I'm saying it. Like, we fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit. We did. We fucking did.
Is he gonna show the part where he says Dan Crenshaw's Iowa got fucked out by a brave Mujahideen soldier? Banger. My streamer. Jesus.
Now, Piker did later call that comment inappropriate and said he didn't mean America.
Did they not show it? No, we need to see this. Let me pull this up.
Few. And here's what Americans deserved to die.
Let that sink in.
No, they're not gonna show it.
Soft power is the exact same as hard power. Soft power, embassies, diplomacy, exact same thing as military bases. I can't do this. I can't do this. This guy has the understanding of foreign policy of like a 12-year-old. What the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with this dude? Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave fucking soldier, fucked his eye hole with their dick? Isn't that how he lost his fucking dumbass eye? Because he got his fucking eye hole fucked? By a brave soldier?
He keeps going. Holy shit.
Didn't he learn that there's a difference between like military bases and diplomacy?
Jesus.
Dana Bash is comfortable with Israel genociding the entirety of Gaza as retribution for the crimes of a few Hamas terrorists, crimes that Israelis also commit against Palestinians at staggering numbers. There is no question that Hamas engages in terrorist activities, and Hassan's flippant language around sexual violence is absolutely condemnable. But the global hypocrisy is also staggering, and something so much bigger than one person live streaming from his bedroom in Los Angeles. Hamas is condemned globally as a terrorist organization, and the atrocities atrocities its militants carried out on October 7th, including alleged rapes, some of which have been debunked as untrue, I'll note, have been pointed to as key evidence justifying this terrorist designation. Yet, at the same time, Israel is a legitimate state that deserves to exist and be protected. This despite a UN report from last year that found, quote, Israel has increasingly employed sexual, reproductive, and other forms of gender-based violence against Palestinians as part of a broader effort to undermine their right to self-determination and carried out genocidal acts through the systematic destruction of sexual and reproductive healthcare facilities. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is very important to pay attention to who is being called a terrorist and who isn't, and by whomst. Israel violently colonizes land that is already occupied, creates a genocidal apartheid state. Both sides commit atrocities and violence against each other. One is a designated terrorist organization, and the other is a state that has the right to self-determination. But you are not allowed to point that out in this country because every single politician and mainstream news organization is bought and sold by Israel and AIPAC. And so they lob the anti-Semitic accusation around and fearmonger anyone who might step out of line and speak out against the well-documented atrocities committed by Israel. The Hassan Piker problem is that he's outside this web of control and yet has amassed a lot of political power in this country because no one watches or trusts mainstream media anymore. Case in point, that CNN panel. I think it's also a testament to Hassan Piker's influence, the fact that he forced Dana Bash to contend with, on this CNN panel, the idea of Hamas as a terrorist org to begin with. For the longest time, we weren't even debating that. We weren't even debating Israel's legitimacy, at least not on the scale that we are now. And that has put a target on Hassan Piker's back, which I think is the age-old problem for famous leftist activists in this country. Actual avowed anti-Semites, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, skinheads, the KKK, far-right conspiracy theorists, they're running around successfully advocating for actual violence, and the people in the highest rungs of power are worried about a guy who's pro-worker and anti-imperialist who said a few problematic things about Israel and 9/11. They compare him to Nick Fuentes as though that's a fair comparison. One man is advocating for socialism and workers' rights and in favor of the marginalized and against billionaires. The other one openly denies that the Holocaust ever happened. Because the terrorists on the far right, the ones who actually carry out far more extremist violence than the left ever does, their terrorism is directed towards minorities. A person like Hassan Piker, someone who advocates for working people, for minorities, against the American
Advocates for working people. Alright, sure.
imperialist experiment, he is genuinely a terrorist in the eyes of the 1%. To them, his
True. Because he is a terrorist that supports terrorist organizations.
ideas bring them terror, and that's the only kind of terror our establishment cares about, the terror of the 1%, because people like Hassan are advocating for them to be wiped off the face of the earth. To the 1%, taxes and regulations are their own personal genocide. Their existence as billionaires can't withstand the types of ideas that a person like Hassan Piker advocates for. So that is what those in power are going to find most threatening and attempt to shut down, and they always have. And I think Hassan Piker and the debate we're having over him, as fucking annoying as all of this is, I think it's good for America. Now let me be clear about my own stance on Hassan. Does Hassan Piker present his ideas in a tactful, palatable way? Absolutely not. I find Hassan Piker to be incredibly off-putting most of the time. He reminds me of the guys I majored in poli-sci with in college who would talk over me at parties. I don't like the way he speaks to his audience. I don't agree with the brazen, insensitive way he talks about these issues. And I think live streaming lends itself really well to running your mouth and saying shit you later regret. That being said, Hassan has watched numerous of my videos on his live stream and only had nice things to say, and I appreciate that. And I think, for better or for worse, whether you like his content or not, Hassan Piker is meeting the people of America where they're at in a way nothing else on the left has managed to do. And if
Oh, really? The fucking socialist dude is the one that is meeting everyone. Wait, what did she say?
that. And I think, for better or for worse, whether you like his content or not, Hassan Piker is meeting the people of America where they're at in a way.
They're meeting the people in America where they're at. The dude that wants to have a revolution against the United States government is the one that's meeting the people where they're at. Who supports a terrorist organization, who supports the Houthis in Yemen, multiple terrorist organizations, Hamas, the Houthis, and the most anti-American person probably on the whole live streaming like sphere. He's the one meeting people where they're at in America. Sure.
Way nothing else on the left has managed to do. And of course, I don't mean all the people in America.
No one else on the left has managed to do. Nobody.
I mean young men in America. The demographic everyone was most wringing their hands over during the 2024 election. The demographic we're all still wringing our hands over. I, like many people, recently watched Louis Theroux's new documentary, Inside the Manosphere. If you haven't seen it, journalist and documentarian Louis Theroux interviews various men who create content and who are part of the Manosphere, a loosely connected cohort of content creators who talk about being red-pilled in the Matrix, how to be real men, and how to be an alpha male, how to get women, how to look max, how to look as hot as possible, and I learned in the documentary also how to make money while you sleep by joining their Signal chat and downloading the stock trading apps they get commissions from by convincing their followers to join. The promise is that if you follow these men, they'll teach you how to be rich and handsome and get women. It speaks to this moment where the American dream is dead. It's harder than ever to provide for yourself, let alone a whole family. Men are isolated and lonely. Women no longer need them, and so they're turning to someone for guidance.
That's true. And it is true that all these women's empowerment movements have made it so women are needing men less and less. Is that a bad thing? No. Through all the time, all these women's empowerment movements where women been taking over the role of the man by getting into the workforce, by taking up these roles that men historically have had, being the provider, being the provider for the home. That, on the other hand, where does it happen with men? Men haven't seemed to be taking the role of the woman, where it is being emotionally more emotionally open, or the role of the provider with taking care of the children more. I fail to see that as happening a whole bunch since that's been happening with women and with women's empowerment movements. Whatever.
For inspiration, to tell them how to get what they want, to explain to them why they feel so shitty. And the Manosphere offers them the antidote. Many of these content creators live stream from their mansions in Ibiza or Miami, and
like Hassan.
A common form of content is them walking down the streets hitting on women, or pulling off more and more shocking stunts to get views and likes and
shocking stunts. Talking about Hassan and shocking. Let's go together like peanut butter and jelly. At least if you're Kaya.
Virality. And if you watch Hassan Piker's content and then you watch this Inside the Manosphere documentary, there are shades of the Manosphere in Hassan Piker's content. And before you think that I'm trying to cancel Hassan Piker, let me explain myself. Hassan Piker is brazen and often says things that have really high shock value, much like men of the Manosphere content creation universe who rely on doing drastic or shocking shit to get views and clicks. Both attract attention. One is harassing women on the street or getting into physical altercations, while the other is calling into question America's imperialist warmongering by saying we deserved 9/11. Hassan Piker often takes his live streams on the road, followed by a cameraman and accompanied by his entourage. He's usually wearing a lot of jewelry and expensive-looking clothes. The same happens in the Manosphere. One group is wandering around the streets of Miami hitting on women. The other is exploring communist China or the blockade on Cuba. Both are creating content for the same generation of men. One is perpetuating toxic tropes of masculinity and the patriarchy and reinforcing the glorification of the military-industrial complex and sending more and more men down the capitalist pipeline. If you just work hard enough, you can be like me, and you should value money and power above everything else. The other, Hassan Piker, is uplifting marginalized voices, breaking down ethno-religious supremacist ideas.
Jeez, this cuck, the cuck, this is some cuck shit, bro. Jesus.
Ideologies, speaking out forcefully against the billionaire class, and questioning the imperialist nature of the United States as a whole, in a way that speaks to young men and meets them where they're at. You might not be comfortable with the
Meets them where they're at. Yeah, keep repeating it. It makes it more true every time you say it.
way in which men under 40 consume content, the content that they like, the tactics used to communicate with them, with the world as it is right now. That's okay. This content isn't for you. But the reality is that this is the world. This is the world the internet has created, for better or for worse. And I would sure as shit prefer young men to be questioning the geopolitical world order with Hassan Piker than learning how to hit on women on the Miami waterfront. You know what I mean? And this speaks to a larger issue with the Democratic Party, one that Naomi Klein lays out really well in her book Doppelganger, and that is that Democrats have a tendency to bury their heads in the sand and ignore the way things are, the real genuine issues people have with the system, instead of figuring out how to fit them within their larger tent. And Republicans and far-right conspiracy theorists are able to step in and fill that void. For example, anti-vaxxing and objections to COVID-era mandates, at least in part, come from a place of truth. It is not irrational or unfounded to question the pharmaceutical industry in this country, an industry that has profited off our death and off keeping us sick. Instead of acknowledging that, and that there are regulatory issues, and that there's good reasons why people might distrust big pharma, the establishment left wrote anti-vaxxers off as nutjobs and continued to cozy up to pharmaceutical lobbyists, giving the far right an opportunity to swoop in and win over anti-vaxxers by acknowledging the truth that sent them down that pipeline to begin with. You're right. There is something fishy about how pharmaceutical companies operate in this country. That wins over trust that then becomes easy to exploit with lies and conspiracies. The same is true of young men and the manosphere. The manosphere is capitalizing on something that is true. Young men in this country are not okay. The economy is rigged against all of us. The patriarchy hurts everyone and makes them feel horrible about themselves because they can't be providers anymore. And the manosphere acknowledges that truth and then sends them down the toxic pipeline. You're right, life is really hard. You are being exploited. That wins over trust that then becomes easy to exploit with lies and conspiracies. The manosphere tells them the way to win back your agency is through stocks and emotionally abusing women. Hassan Piker tells them that actually the billionaire class is the reason why your life sucks. Young men are seeking this shit out online, whether we like it or not. And they're not seeking it out from mainstream media. They're not seeking it out from even someone like me, a leftist, yes, but someone who's a lot more measured and doesn't do or say things that go particularly viral, and is also a woman in her 30s, so sorry, but I'm not particularly intriguing to 20-year-old men, and I'm really okay with that. That's just the reality of the situation. And I don't know about you, but I'd far prefer a world where they jump onto the leftist Hassan Piker train than the manosphere death spiral. I think that's a net positive for America. And yet, the establishment Democrats, the legacy media, would rather shoot themselves in the foot than acknowledge that they need Hassan Piker in their tent. They would rather throw their weight behind attempting to cancel him than attempting to understand what it is about him that speaks to a base of people that they have been clamoring to win over, young men. They all of a sudden demand purity, to never associate with anyone who's ever said anything objectionable, while openly and vociferously supporting Israel, an apartheid state actively committing genocide while the world watches. Instead of attempting to figure out how to actually fit the entire left wing of this country in their tent, which is their burden in our fucked up two-party system, which would require acknowledging differences, having hard conversations, strategizing, open-mindedness, coalition building. They are once again alienating the entire left of their base, because this isn't just off-putting to Hassan Piker fans, it's off-putting to anyone outside left of center who wants to see the Democrats attempt to mend this party, take back power, and make the types of progressive changes that need to happen to ensure a Donald Trump figure never happens again in this country. And that requires addressing the truths that Donald Trump and the right have been willing to exploit, that billionaires are amassing wealth and leaving us to fight over the scraps, that life in America is about surviving and not thriving for the vast majority of Americans. Trump promised solutions to that and of course delivered
Keep going with the rant. Holy shit.
nothing, but Democrats could actually step in and increase taxes on the wealthy, provide affordable healthcare and childcare if they were willing to embrace progressive ideals and the people that come along with it. But they're not. Just like in Germany in the lead up to World War II, in America we are seeing the quote-unquote opposition party choose money over morals, cling to their elite friends, align themselves closer with the fascists than with the people, while just playing lip service to the concerns of the masses and doing nothing about anything, and then throwing us all under the bus in order to keep their power. So the discussion over Hassan Piker is about so much more than what we do with this leftist guy who live streams all day. It is a microcosm of how fucking broken this country is that we cannot even fathom how to include actual leftist progressive ideas that would actually help the masses into our national political conversation. That we equate leftist progressivism as just as extreme and therefore bad as far-right extremism, as though they're equally at the same distance ends of the political spectrum. Despite the fact that in many countries in Europe, there are people who espouse very similar values to Hassan Piker, who hold seats in parliament, whose democratic socialist parties are seen as center-left. Much like who and what we deem to be terrorists is dictated.
I'm Charlie Kirk. I'm sexual. It's appalling that in the 21st century, there is still so little sexual diversity. This cannot stand. I'm not talking about Prager. Been there, done that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie Kirk, and this is Dennis Prager. As you probably know by now, unless you know by now, very, very rarely I have a guest. So if I have a guest, it's pretty special. And he is pretty.
And I'm not talking about
this or this. We're talking about
this. Today's talks are more sexually integrated than at any time in the first century. And if your concern is non-binary gender, there is no place on earth more accepting of hims, hers, zims, and zers than this. You can pretty much experiment with this.
Okay, good one. Alright, I can't find anything good. It's been a short one, but I'll be back tomorrow for a long old streamy weemy neemy. Yeah. Alright, y'all have a good one. Bye. Buyers.